Good Monday morning, guys. This is Dr. Corey from The Diet Doc, and I'm excited to announce that I'm going to be starting a new little series called Monday Motivational Mastery. And so every Monday, what I'm going to do is we'll take a dive into a situation that one of my clients is dealing with currently. It could even be something that I am working on learning how to navigate successfully in my own life that I think maybe you could relate to. So we'll tease that apart and we'll look at different ways of managing the situation or even of integrating the situation in ways that we can feel more effective, we can feel more competent, we can feel more committed to being our best selves. I'm excited about this because on a daily basis I encounter so many different circumstances that are going on in my clients' lives that I have wanted to find a way to share and get out there and be able to use as kind of fertile ground and a foundation for helping each one of you operate in your lives more effectively. Because if there is one kind of universal truth besides death in this world, it is that we share a very common humanity. Whatever we are struggling with, we're not facing it alone. It can feel like that sometimes, but to remember that there is always someone, and likely multiple people, who have traversed some challenging or difficult circumstances that can be very similar to ours, I think serves to give us a lot of hope for what we may be capable of in terms of managing it personally. So the experience, it's important to remember, of course, it's never going to be exactly the same, but remembering that others have difficulties, it's one of the best ways to come back to the value of offering ourselves some level of compassion. It never works very well to go into self-critical mode and begin saying, why can't I get through this? How come this is so hard? This should be easier. And kind of blasting ourselves. That does not serve to increase our motivation to move down more clear path. But then B, to, obviously navigate the challenge with greater ease. There are always going to be times that are not comfortable, but we can move through them with a better sense of resilience by remembering that we do have that common humanity. But so welcome. We're going to start today, actually. I'm eager to dive in. Please know that all names that of my clients, I am changing them, obviously, to maintain their privacy. I probably won't even name names, but after each story, too, I will give you a take-home motivational mastery tip. There will be a couple nuggets in each one of these Monday Motivational Mastery sessions, we'll call them, that you can go forth into your own lives and begin implementing. But this email came from a client who was a former physique. She competed previously as a physique competitor. And as many of you know, I have a previous background. I retired in 2012 in physique competition. But I've worked with many individuals who are struggling through binge eating post-competition, not just immediately after, but they struggle with it for a significant period of time afterwards as a result of severe dieting practices. What I think is important to remember, and a lot of people don't know this though, is that even if the dieting practices weren't necessarily unhealthy, they weren't super severe, food restriction is the number one risk for binge eating. So that's an important thing to know. But she said to me, and there will be points in this where I'm reading it so I don't jumble up my client's words. I came to a realization, she said, after watching a webinar this week, and it was about letting go of your addictions to feel for what the wounded belief is underneath the addiction, underneath the negative behavior is what we can call it. She said, I've come across much sadness. I'm feeling very sad this week. I'm not overeating, but I really am just feeling kind of sad and heavy and demotivated. And there have been many times throughout the week that I've just kind of held myself. I've hugged myself and I've cried, I've sobbed. She said that there have been a lot of uncomfortable thoughts that have presented themselves and a lot of desires for her future. And with a lot of the individuals that I work with who have struggled with binge eating for a period of time, they're realizing just how much they are missing out on in their lives because so much time is spent thinking about food, about weight, about when they're going to binge again, about what's wrong with them, about why they can't stop. And so that's a ton of energy and effort that could be devoted to building themselves up and pursuing their dreams. And that gets in the way. She said, I've been feeling like I want to feel more deeply connected to everyone around me. Connected as in like feel their touch. And then she said, I hope this makes sense. And what I find, I hear that phrase a lot, I hope this makes sense, because a lot of the clients that I work with are processing through writing what they're thinking as they're thinking it. And if there's anything you can take home from that piece of this session, it's that writing is one of the best ways to begin integrating something that you're experiencing and getting it out of your head. It reduces a sense of confusion. So take that for what it's worth. But if there's one thing that you guys will begin to know about me, if you don't already, it's that I work from a very strength-based perspective. So I'm always looking for those values in people. I don't work from a deficit, like this person is broken sort of a space. And it's important to remember that where our attention goes, our energy flows. So if I'm paying attention to what is wrong with this person, then that's what I'm going to be kind of putting out there for her. If we just continue focusing on that, the room then holds no space for her to be thinking about the things that are going very, very well in her life, her values, her principles, her strengths that then she can draw upon to move out of this behavior. If we want to feel worse, we focus on the negative, right? If we want to expand, if we want to grow, then we pay attention to our capacities. So I said to her, because I needed her to know, I love hearing about your experience because it's deep. It's full of depth. And she obviously has like these deep longings for something that she hasn't been able to aspire to. And that's a crazy, beautiful emotion right there. And so I said, like, that's love, that's care. It's love and care for herself. And it's pretty darn tender the way that she described it. And I said, though it almost seems like you're experiencing it as a loss. And I really see it as an expansion of like her best self, like she's opening up to the possibilities. Parker Palmer, I don't know if you're familiar with him, has this great quote where he talks about the heart breaking open instead of collapsing. And that's exactly what I thought of. And I shared that with her and I said, that's really a gift. And then I said, I would love for you to see this as an opportunity to commit to stepping away from a couple things, because it seems like she's believing that she has a need to binge or that a binge is representing something lacking in her life. And she could look at it that way, but I wanted her to consider the fact that she's not a binge eater anymore. A feeling of wanting to binge is an urge. And an urge is prompted by a thought. So a thought that says, like, you should go eat a bunch of food right now, or this would be a good time to go stuff yourself, or you're feeling sad right now. How about a bunch of food to help you solve this problem? And what we're working on is her getting to this place where emotion is beautiful. Emotion isn't a reason to binge. If she didn't have an urge to binge, she probably wouldn't binge in the first place. But the brain begins to make associations with behaviors. So a lot of the individuals that I help can tell me when we start to look like for triggers. Everything makes me binge. There are situations where I'm perfectly happy and I want to binge. So because the binge behavior happens so often in pretty much every circumstance, the brain begins associating with it, and then we get into this circular reasoning around there must be something that I'm lacking, and I binge to get away from the discomfort of that recognition. And we all have stuff that's lacking. We all have things that we could be working on. We all have different areas of weaknesses in our lives that we may want to bolster or make better. Binge eating doesn't solve those things. But when you entertain a thought, this is important to remember, and you put your attention on it and you believe it, then you have a higher likelihood of acting on it and then having that thought again and again and engaging in the behavior again, because now it's been reinforced. So you are actively creating a habit when you act on that thought, positive or negative. So that's important to remember. A tendency, okay, we all have tendencies, behaviors that we gravitate towards. In this case, it's an urge to go eat a bunch of food. Tendencies aren't licensed to go do it. And a tendency can be mitigated by us using our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's logical and problem solving. Okay, tendencies do not need to become actualities. Doesn't mean we need to, okay? And it means, though, that we just need to notice. We need to notice the thought, notice the urge, just notice it, and then remind ourselves that we don't do that anymore. You create the habit of the brain recognizing that it's not necessary when you do that. So what will happen is you'll notice the thought. It's like you'll catch it, okay? And then you can just release it. You'll catch it, and then you can just release it. Just let it go. It does not need any action. So here's the message, guys. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Where do you want to be expending your energy? All right. Thanks, guys. Motivational mastery tip number 1. See you guys next week.